What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sleeper Colts. I am your host, as always, Cody Felger. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We are halfway through the Indianapolis Colts training camp, right at the midway point here for the Colts. Colts have today off, and then we'll be right back at it Thursday night. And then they're off to Foxborough next week for their first preseason action on Thursday. So with that being said, guys, as we've kind of looked at camp, we've heard a lot of stuff, and I appreciate everybody who has tuned in to all the recaps that I've had for all 6 days of camp so far for Indianapolis. We're definitely going to continue to do that. So thank you guys so much. But guys, through the 6 practices the Colts have had, obviously the first week without pads, this week the Colts have turned on the pads and have started to see a little bit more of some things with the position battles, right? And so as we're 6 weeks through, we've started to look at some position battles, see a little bit of some separation in some, and also see a little bit of both for certain players that are vying for this position group and this starting or backup position. So with that being said, guys, I wanted to kind of provide an update from what we've heard from different reporters, from what we've seen from practice and things like that. Some updates here halfway through camp on certain position battles here. I think the first one we have to talk about is that backup quarterback position between Riley Leonard and Anthony Richardson. Right now, it seems like it's still fairly even in terms of these two quarterbacks. I would say right now, if you're going out tomorrow, from what we've seen, Riley Leonard has the slight edge over Anthony Richardson. Richardson has had definitely some issues handling snaps so far through camp, but neither quarterback has necessarily been fantastic during camp so far. So that's definitely something to just continue to monitor there. As it stands right now, Riley Leonard's got a few more snaps and seems a little bit better, and he hasn't had the snap issues. So to me, I believe that Riley Leonard is the early leader. But again, preseason coming up this next Thursday will definitely tell the story a little bit more. That's just kind of a quick little update there for the position battle when it comes to the backup quarterback position. So definitely something we're going to continue to monitor, and I'm very curious how that is going to kind of figure itself out there. Another position battle on the offense that I want to talk about is that backup running back position between DJ Giddens, who was here last year. You drafted him in 2025. And then newcomer this year, Seth McGowan, who you drafted in the 7th round out of Kentucky. And right now, I would say Seth McGowan is the number 2 guy in my mind. If you're going out tomorrow, Seth McGowan's getting the carries here for Indianapolis. Obviously, DJ Giddens, he's had some drop issues. We've seen that in camp. And also, he's a little bit banged up right now with injury. So Seth McGowan is just that type of back that I think complements Jonathan Taylor so well. He's a between the tackles type of runner. You know, we've heard a couple comparisons to a few different NFL players. We've heard comparisons to David Montgomery, who obviously makes a ton of sense there, and you'd love if he turned into a David Montgomery for you. And we've heard some comparisons to some other backs like that. So I definitely think Seth McGowan has a role with this team. He's very much impressed. It seems like he's making a play or two or multiple throughout the course of a practice. And so as that RB2, Seth McGowan's really taken charge there, which is awesome to see. I mean, he was a guy that we said immediately when he got drafted, he is a lot more talented than a 7th round pick. He's obviously just got a lot that's happened in his past, from obviously the legal trouble he was in, and then his age. He was 25 years old, an older rookie. So those were kind of the things working against him in the draft cycle. But overall, the talent's undeniable. Seth McGowan's a very talented player, very productive guy at Kentucky last year, and it seems like he's a player that is going to get a role here with this team. And you absolutely need another back to do that, right? I think Shane Steichen compared him to Zach Moss, which that was a great compliment to Jonathan Taylor back in 2023, and a guy that could take the load off of Taylor when Taylor obviously missed the first part of that season due to the contract dispute stuff. But yeah, I love to see that Seth McGowan continuing to do some good stuff there. And I'm curious what this means for DJ Giddens, and can he potentially start to close the gap again here? We'll just have to see on that. Now, the other position battle, and probably one of the biggest position battles we were watching coming into camp, is that wide receiver 3 position. You had a couple players in here that you felt like were going to probably compete for that. That, of course, being Ashton Doolin, who's been here for a long time, been primarily the 4th or 5th wide receiver, more of a special teams guy, and then newcomer wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine, who you brought in free agency. Right now, it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of us thought, Ashton Doolin might win this job, right? Because he knows the offense, he's familiar with it. I believe for sure that we've seen a little bit more of Nick Westbrook-Akine and Laquan Treadwell kind of start to close the gap a little bit for wide receiver 3 right now. To me, guys, it's kind of a toss-up. You could really throw out any 3 of these players. They've all got action at wide receiver. They've all made plays at times. So right now, I don't think there's a noticeable gap between any of the 3 guys. I really could say the Colts rolling with any of the 3 players at wide receiver 3 if they were going out tomorrow. Now, again, this is obviously a position group that we've talked a ton about. The Colts have talked about, though. So it does appear that wide receiver is still potentially on the table for this team. But if you're going out tomorrow without making that move, it's really kind of anybody's, position to win at this point. I wouldn't be shocked with anybody. And obviously without Alec Pierce being out there, we've got to see a lot more of these other wide receivers, and it's been on full display. So we'll kind of have to see on that. Right now, I could kind of see any of the 3 guys getting run at wide receiver 3. So we'll kind of have to see how that obviously continues to transpire, and do the Colts potentially do add a wide receiver here in the coming weeks. I personally think it's absolutely necessary, but we'll have to see what the Colts intend to do there at wide receiver, because like I said, nobody's really stood out above the others so far through the first half of camp. So that's something we're going to have to continue to monitor as well. Got to talk as well, the other position group, kind of if wide receiver was the one we were watching on offense, defensive end outside of Latu was the other one that we were watching coming into camp this year. Obviously the Colts didn't have full pads the first week of camp, and they just started getting into pads here the last couple practices. So it was so tough to evaluate, that edge position there, and really the both offense and defensive lines without full pads on. And the Colts have only had 2 full padded practices so far of the 6. So this might be something the next couple, practices we start to get a little bit more of answers right now. But right now, I believe that Arden Key is guy alongside Latu. We've seen him get a ton of run with the one so far. So I think right now he has an early lead, but obviously with the pads continuing to be on, maybe you see a player like a Jalen Tuimuluau start to close that gap a little bit more. But obviously Arden Key is a player that's been in the league for a while. And while I think his ceiling isn't tremendously high, and I think definitely Jalen Tuimuluau's, ceiling is definitely higher at this point, there is a reality where he is more of a steady player and he is more of a known, whereas Tuimuluau is more of an unknown at this point, and the floors are definitely different right now. So I would say Arden Key has been the guy right now. We've seen a lot, so I'll go with him as the early leader so far. But again, like I said, as you get more into full padded practices and stuff, we're going to get a lot more answers to these questions. And obviously as well, the Colts will rotate a lot of guys. We've seen them do this in the past, and I'm sure they'll do that at edge as well. Like they're going to be rotating a bunch of different guys here at edge. So we'll have to see on that. But right now, I believe Arden Key is the guy in the early leader here. All right, moving on to linebacker here. This is another position group that has rotated a ton so far. I mean, obviously CJ Allen, started off on PUP, missed the first 2 practices. He's been good to go since then. It's kind of interesting to see because we've seen a couple different things happen. Like I mentioned, the rotation, we've seen a ton of guys get in there. CJ Allen, Akeem Davis-Gaither. We've seen obviously Bryce Betcher. We've seen Austin Ajaki as well, and Jalen Carlisle. So we've really seen 5 linebackers rotate into this, linebacker room. And so is that something the Colts continue to do as we get further into camp, or do we see more of a clear-cut favorites here at linebacker? But if you're going top 3, I'm going CJ Allen, I'm going Akeem Davis-Gaither, I'm going Bryce Betcher. Kind of curious beyond that, what does that look like for the other 2 guys? But right now, we've seen a ton of that, and obviously we've seen CJ Allen get some off his plate as a rookie as well, with the play calling duties falling on Cam Bynum a little bit more, which I think is smart at this point. I mean, he's getting acclimated to the NFL. He can definitely do it at some point, but especially early, it maybe is just smart and wise for the Colts to take one thing off his plate and just let him settle into playing linebacker at the NFL level. So I'm okay with that personally. We'll have to see what happens when it comes to the linebacker position in the coming weeks here. Do we see more of a clear-cut, favorite 2 or 3 guys, as opposed to them just kind of rotating all the time at linebacker? So that's definitely one that I'm paying attention to 100%. Now, moving over to the secondary and specifically the strong safety position, it was one of the most intriguing position battles because the Colts added a ton in free agency in the draft when it came to this position group. And so we were like, who is going to win that position group? Is it going to be one of the free agents you brought in, say a Jonathan Owens or somebody else there in that room? Was it going to be a Hunter Wooler, who obviously the Colts were extremely high on last year before he went down with injury? Or was it going to be 3rd round pick AJ Hulsey to be that starter? And we've kind of seen a little bit of everything. Hunter Wooler started out as that guy at strong safety. He's had to miss a couple practices in a row due to a hamstring injury. So we've been able to see AJ Hulsey get a lot more run at strong safety alongside of Cameron Bynum. We've also been able to see Jonathan Owens it seems like he's making a play about every single practice. So I definitely think he has a role on this team for sure. So he would be a guy that I definitely think is earning himself a roster spot as well. But in terms of that starter, I really think it's between Wooler and AJ Hulsey at this point. And we'll just have to see how that does pan itself out. And then the final position battle I want to talk about in today's episode has to be that starting kicker position. And I don't even know at this point, guys, if I would label that as a position battle. I really think that Blake Grupe, he is absolutely running away with this, in my opinion. I mean, he has missed 0 kicks so far. Spencer Schrader has missed 5. I mean, he has been absolutely automatic since coming to Indianapolis mid-season. So I think Blake Grupe is the clear-cut leader right now in this room. And if he continues to do what he's doing, I really don't see a scenario where he's not your starting kicker come week 1. So, yeah, in my mind, it's not really a competition to me. I really believe that Blake Grupe is kind of running away with this right now because he's been so darn consistent, and we've seen his confidence as a kicker, which is huge to have. So I love that. I love to see Blake Grupe taking that because he was so exceptional for this team last year when you needed him after the whole thing with Spencer Schrader going down. Then you had the Michael Badgley fiasco. He was kind of a godsend in a way where he comes in and is absolutely perfect for you and exactly what you needed there. So love to see Blake Grupe continuing to pick up where he left off last year. And then that's really it, guys, for the position battles here for the Indianapolis Colts. Some updates. I know a lot of people have been curious about a few of these updates and how these position battles are going. So those are kind of how they're playing out right now. Again, guys, we've only had 2 full padded practices, so we're going to be seeing a lot more in the coming days and weeks. And obviously, like I said, Colts kick off their preseason next Thursday in New England. So we're going to get a good look at some of these players as well. But other than that, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, have a good one.